No mai, hoki mai. Welcome back into the breakdown from Toulouse in the southwest of France. Some brilliant tries scored across the second weekend of the Rugby World Cup. But JK always uses this phrase, who's thriving, who's surviving. We can use that in a rugby sense right now. And someone that is seriously under pressure is Eddie Jones and the Wallabies, and his press conferences never fail to deliver.
We're doing our absolute best, and I apologise, it's my fault. I take full responsibility for it. Well, when you're a television commentator, you're always right, mate. So maybe I need to become a television commentator. Then I'll be right all the time. I made the decision to go for a young team. If that's the wrong decision, then I'll be held accountable for that. But I think Australian rugby needs to move on to a younger team. And, you know, I'm prepared to experience some pain to go through it, to leave Australia with a team that's capable of doing really well at a World Cup. And it's not to say we can't do that. You know, we've had a bit of a setback today, but that's all part of being in a World Cup. You know, I do remember South Africa lost the game and won the World Cup. So funny things have happened. Yeah, as disappointing as our performance was today, you know, to get a point out of that is a bit of a bonus, and that's probably why they're called bonus points. Oh, and you don't have a bit of a dig, mate? It's always good to kick a dead body, mate. Anything else, guys? Get your fill? Look, I'm a bit used to it, mate. And after that, I probably deserve more, mate. You know, they should be throwing what will they throw here? Baguettes, croissants at me. It's not good enough, so I deserve whatever I get, mate.
We're taking nothing away from the Flying Fijians here because it was a brilliant performance and a great win for them at the Rugby World Cup. But JK, how much pressure are the Wallabies and Eddie Jones under when they're in jeopardy of not making it out of their pool right now?
Well, they'll be able, you know, and a lot more pressure when they're flying home, not making the playoffs. And I can't see them making it at the moment because of the way they're playing. I don't think they've got a front five at the moment that can be dominant at the next level. You know, I think some of their selections, leaving some of their X-factor players at home. I mean, would you have liked Quade Cooper to come on late in that game? So I just don't think they've got the cattle at the moment, and I don't think they're playing a style of rugby that suits the cattle that they've got. So it's really interesting. You know, you guys know I love Eddie. I think he's a big part of the game, but actually the reality is I don't think they're good enough.
Did Rugby Australia make a mistake when they sacked Dave Rennie prematurely prior to the Rugby World Cup? Would he have had this group going better than what they are under Eddie Jones?
Well, it was a huge call at the time, wasn't it? I think he was starting to get some inroads in terms of, you know, fluency in their games and consistency in some of their players. They bring on Eddie, obviously not just for this World Cup, but for the future. But I agree with JK. I think when you pick a really inexperienced team and your front five aren't dominating, there's still some sort of inexperienced guys in there. Then you're putting the whole onus on a real youngster at 10. And they still haven't sort of sorted who their combat 9 is. And so what it kind of look like, they look like they're trying really, really hard. Almost confused about what their game plan is, and then chasing the game. And when you're playing against a side like the Fijians who've got nothing to lose, they come out, they bring the physicality, they bring that excitement, you're under immense pressure. So I just wonder whether they're a little bit confused. I was hoping that they would have kicked on from that Bledisloe game, but they just haven't yet.
Look, the way they're playing the game is un-Australian for me. Hold on to the ball and play. Don't kick it away. They've got a skill set. They're certainly good enough for that. The one thing they can't afford to do is they can't afford to get in a confrontation. And the fact they didn't realise that Fiji's forward pack has elevated itself in the last 18 months to 2 years to the point they are an international quality forward pack. Particularly their starting 8 were outstanding. Their work over the ball, you talked about it. So ultimately they've prepared poorly for this game and they've played poorly. But I think this is a direct result of the fact they've got 5 teams in Super Rugby. It's too much.
Yeah, I get that. I knew you were going to go there.
Exactly, because they've got no depth.
OK, but what if I say this? They possibly playing to their level.
No,
So I don't know if they can play better, because when I see their kickers kick the ball dead
No, but that's strategy.
at international
That
level...
was strategy. They were doing that on the back of line breaks.
What
On
about the
line breaks.
execution?
No,
what about
line
the
breaks.
execution?
They were...
And then, how many times have you seen the All Blacks kick it dead, or South Africa kick it dead? I mean, that's just execution.
A number of times there was a fullback there, covering the back space. It wasn't like there was space in the backfield.
Yeah, so my question is, are they underperforming, or are they just playing to their ability and they're not good enough?
Oh, I don't think they've developed enough depth. But what they've done is the fact they've been in Super Rugby, and because their talent is spread so far and wide, they don't get confidence, they don't get growth. They get the fact that quite often they're not deep into the playoffs in Super Rugby for a number of years. But Dave Rennie, I think, was doing a great job with the same group of players. They were there.
That's getting back to your question, right? You can't blame Eddie. You can't blame Eddie.
So you point a finger at Rugby Australia.
And you can't, exactly. So, and Dave Rennie was doing a good job. You don't get rid of your head coach if you're not delivering the cattle. What's happening at school level? I mean, if they go out early, then maybe it's going to be that kick in the behind that they need to start saying, well, maybe we can only have 4 franchises. What are we doing at the school level? Yeah. This is a union that got $70 million from the 2003 World Cup.
If they go out early, does Eddie Jones seriously survive? I know they're looking ahead to 2027, but can you
Signed
keep
a
him in that
5-year deal.
role?
Good old Eddie, old mate. Beauty, babe. Get the old 5-year deal in there.
The downside to this, and if they don't make the quarterfinals, is, I mean, it's really unattractable in Australia. You know, they're competing against some big sporting other organisations. If they don't win, no one's going to want to play rugby, you'd think. And so how do they create it? I think you're right. They've got to actually come back and go, well, hey, instead of having 5 teams, we've got maybe 4. And you look at the team that he's picked. I think there was the Brumbies made the playoffs, and they only got like 6 players, at least of the whole lot. So what has he actually picked his team on?
Well, on the other end of the scale, you have Ireland, who are looking like absolute world champions right now, Jeff. Can anyone beat them the way that they are playing?
Well,
who have they played?
I mean, they haven't been tested
Have
fully
they played
yet.
Kirst?
They haven't been tested.
Yeah,
they
but
will
they're
this
on...
weekend. South Africa coming up this weekend. That's when we'll know.
But they're on some sort of winning streak. And you can't take that away from them. The fact they haven't played South Africa or Scotland, 2 biggest challenges in their pool. So right now, what they are is they're well prepared, they look slick, they look balanced, they look as though they're in good shape, health-wise. They've certainly got some depth. Their bench adds when it comes on. So ultimately, they're delivering on exactly what they came into this Rugby World Cup with. Great form, with healthy players. Now it's a matter of whether or not they've got 2 big performances in them before they go to a quarter-final.
I would put a word in there that I'd use often for the All Blacks. They're clinical. And I think, you know, I think they'll make it through. Their tournament is yet to come. They've got Scotland, who are well drilled now. They've got a South African side that is on form. So it's not easy, but they are clinical Mills. They know how to play. Every single player knows what to do. They can hold the ball for multiple phases. If you can't get it off them, you're in trouble. It'd take a miracle, but then Scotland will be aiming for them. South Africa will be aiming for them. So they've got 2 big games coming up, and they haven't really been tested.
You genuinely think that Ireland won't make it out of the pool, JK?
No, not of course. I don't think they're not going to make it out of the pool. I think they're good enough, but this is tournament. You know, they're carrying all this pressure. We're putting pressure on them. Can they deal with the pressure of the World Cup? We're about to find out, because their next couple of games are the biggest games of the tournament.
I think timing-wise, it's probably perfect for them. You know, they've had a couple of really, you know, nice clinical displays against, you know, lesser oppositions, but now they've got 2 big ones before they go into the finals. So it's just come off sort of like a pre-season. So it's a nice way to actually warm yourself into. They could have easily been a little bit clunky in those games. I think they're in the best position to be able to go into this with 2 hard games, come to the quarterfinals, and that intensity is still there. Other teams won't have the ability to go into quarterfinals rugby off the back of, you know, some big games.
Can we celebrate some of these legends at the Rugby World Cup? Sam Whitelock reached a historic milestone the other day. Johnny Sexton, another one, 38 years old. He's playing at his 4th Rugby World Cup and has just surpassed Ronan O'Gara as the top point scorer for Island Mills. So we've got to celebrate these guys.
Absolutely, we do. I mean, you talk about Sam and obviously, you know, what sort of he's done in his position.
Yeah.
Johnny Sexton, man, he's been around for
2009.
Oh, man, it's crazy. And you do. I mean, these are the guys that actually sit there and promote the game, you know, the way they're playing, but to be at that top level as well, wonderful achievement for both of them.
Yeah, for me, Sam, consistency, unbelievable. Same with Sexton. So two greats of the game.
Well, the curious case of the Springboks continue. We know that they picked 4 halfbacks coming into this Rugby World Cup. Faf de Klerk ended the game playing at first 5. Grant Williams started the game on the wing. Dean Fourie in his first Rugby World Cup switched from loose forward to hooker. Malcolm Marx has been ruled out and they bring in Handré Pollard, Jeff.
No surprises here whatsoever. I said before the tournament that Handré Pollard would play.
He'd be there.
He would be in this tournament in some way. I didn't expect it to be like this. Now, I'm not sure, you know, the experience of the players coming in to cover hooker, but that's a risk for me, Mills. The fact not having someone who's been a specialist, considering the way that they've played, and the loss of Malcolm Marx is significant. If we end up facing them in a quarter-final, I feel just a little bit better about that, knowing that he won't be out there, because he's been one of those guys that's given us so much of a problem. South Africa still look good. They're just going about their business. They're dominating where they're strong at. I'm not going to say too much more so I don't get myself in trouble. How about that? I'll leave it to you guys.
Everything you say gets about 1 million views. Mills?
I think the downside to not having a specialist is, you know, the line-outs, you know, that's been their biggest strength. And when you haven't got time in there and someone coming in and throwing it, yeah, they're going to get this, you know, something similar in terms of the Malcolm Marx over the ball, in terms of the players that they've got. But I think, you know, you're really placing your bets on someone coming on and hitting the mark and what is arguably their biggest strength, and that's their line-out.
Oh, I think it's all part of the plan. I think that they've realised that winning in between World Cups is not as important as winning World Cups. So I think it's all been planned. I think they're acting like a very confident side that knows what they need to do to win. They've got players that can play multiple positions.
How big a play does Handré Pollard, you know, how much what do they do with him? The fact that Manila Bok has done a great job for them at first 5 and look really, really settled. Is Pollard, because when they go with a 6-2 split, JK, is that, mind you, they've got 4 halfbacks that can play all positions, to be fair.
No, they bring him on with 15 minutes to go.
So he's on the bench, though, for them?
For Ireland this weekend.
In the quarterfinals. They're bringing him in. He is the type of guy that you want to bring the game home. And I think they'll be doing it for that. They'll be up by 3 points against whoever, you know, and I'm hoping that we're going to play them, because I think I'd rather play them than Ireland. You know, and they'll bring him on with 20 to go to kick to the corners, to try and get penalties, to get those mauls going. So he's just a calm head that they trust.
So, Mills, you're leaving Mani Lebok at 10?
I'd leave him there. I think he's been really good. I think, because 2 different players, right? And I think the way that they're going, the consistency, the flow that they've got in the game, he's running the game really well. I agree. I think, you know, you bring Pollard off the bench, he can finish, he can goal kick from 60-odd metres, and, you know, direct them around when they need to, particularly when it comes to their game. I mean, how big of influence does that game in Twickenham and that win and how they won it? They just seem a totally different beast now. Their confidence levels are up. They're really composed about what they're doing. They're focusing on themselves and no one else. They're looking really good.
Well, let's talk Samoa, because they got their Rugby World Cup campaign underway. It was so cool to see some of these former Wallabies and former All Blacks players out there representing Manu Samoa.
Oh, it's massive.
Mills.
It's massive. And seeing guys out there with plenty of test match experience, I mean, and that's a great rule that they've brought out. And you're also seeing that in terms of some of the play, like the set piece. You know, that's coming along a lot better than perhaps they would have sort of had. So they've sort of strengthened that up. Would have been a long wait for Samoa, having that bye that first week, but you know, they've got a bigger task here. And the big thing now that what they've seen Fiji do is the motivation that provide them to be able to say, well, who can we pick off?
Well, that's an second in
you know why I'm
right
smiling? I was just smiling because I don't know if this is true, but wasn't in the Fiji and Australian game, wasn't every try scorer a Fijian?
Yeah, true. Yeah, true.
Right.
No one can do us there. And also, who was
Vunivalu come on?
Right. So Pacifica Rugby has always been a jewel in the rugby crown. Created some of the greatest rugby players in the world, and we have been depriving the world of these great athletes and these great players by banning them if they play 2 test matches for the All Blacks or for Australia. So to have these guys available is fundamental to the growth of our sport. So like I said, I'm critical of World Rugby often, but the money they're investing in the second tier, especially in South Pacific, is fantastic. And I hope, you know, I thought Samoa could have played better. I thought Tonga could have played better, but they will get better over the tournament. I can see them getting better as they go. So for me...
Who can you see them beating?
Because they have Japan, Argentina and England.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's their next 3 games. And so we talk about them, whether or not...
They're a chance.
You think they're a chance to beat Argentina, to beat England...
You see Argentina play the other day?
Yeah, I did.
Did you see Argentina play?
Yep.
Well, if they play like that, they've got a chance. I don't think they can play that badly again. And my mate Diego Dominguez, I spoke to him, he was horrified. I've never seen Argentina play that bad. But that's tournament. Some people come in, you lose your confidence, and you start playing terribly.